So the disclaimers, in typical fashion, I already skipped that part and ahead. So we're going to go back. So the disclaimers are, I am not an expert in this topic. This is not a motivational speech. This is not to see what your goal in life or purpose in life is. This is a focused review of a particular set of skills, and it's not inclusive of what we'll have here. So ACGME came out with these new milestones that are supposed to be implemented in July of 22, but they've been talking about these sort of in the same realm of what I was talking about. What is it that residents need that we're not getting to get the job done, right? And a big part of this is, in the past, it was like, if you're a great communicator, things work much better. But we've come to realize that if you are not able to manage a group and communicate, people die, right? So communication actually, it's more than just being able to perform at a high level. It's basically needed to be able to take care of patients in a safety way. So I'm gonna really go through these fast. So for those of you who are familiar with milestones, they have levels. And graduating resident, ideally, and Dr. Spencer will correct me, ideally will have to be on a level 4. So on these new milestones, if you look at the level 4, we're asking the faculty teach and the residents are able to do things like reflect in gaps. We're asking people to recognize situations that trigger professionalism. We are asking residents to recognize situations that impact others and take responsibility in a timely manner. We're asking to independently look at personal and professional well-being, right? I don't know about you, but people that are 60-year-old are still trying to figure out what is professional and personal well-being, right? So by you in 4 years have to be able to figure this out. You have to facilitate difficult discussions, right? And you have to independently recognize personal biases, right? You have to mediate conflicts, right? And you have to address conflicts and distress. Communicate clearly, concisely, on time. And so when I looked at all this, and those of you that are fourth years, we are asking you that you should be able to proficiently manage conflict, understand self and develop well-being plans. You are able to read the room as you walked in. You have to be a role model and advocate for safety and quality. You have to communicate clearly. And at the end of all of these, you have to manage conflict and facilitate difficult discussions. So I don't know about you, but when I looked at these, I was like, this sounds like a lot. It's great to put it in writing. What exactly are we doing for me as a faculty to learn about this and me as a faculty to teach about this? So then I dig into the literature. Maybe I'm not aware. Maybe there's other things happening. And there are literature. So there's literature that goes 5-10 years back that says they're trying to create a leader out of a residency, but give things like set clear expectations, give and receive timely and specific feedback, empower the interns, come prepared, teach, communicate. But if you looked at, and we'll talk a little bit more about this, if you looked at the communicate, look at this paragraph. It says, don't forget to communicate with interns about changes in plans. The hardest part of communicating may not relate to talking, but be approachable, available, present. And then the best one is just be a human being. I don't know if any of this is helpful to you, but none of this is helping me at all to have I feel that I'm a fine human being and I can talk to the interns about changes of plans, and that has very little to do with what ACGME is looking at. And there's plenty of literature to talk about this. There's other ones that really looked into, and all this literature really focusing how we can teach specific set of skills for sign out, for feedback, and mostly for on-the-go safety issues. Like, please don't transfuse 5 units of blood to the wrong patient. But nothing really about reading the room, managing conflict. The patient doesn't want to see you, her husband is mad, go talk to her. This is the 10th time that you go, it doesn't matter, she still doesn't understand. How do we teach you, and how do we get taught to deal with that? So, as I said, it's talking about managerial techniques, workarounds effectively. And so the last one that I found, and I think this comes from the Netherlands, they looked at this survey that they did, basically asking faculty and separately asking residents, and they asked these 4 questions, 2 task-oriented and 2 relation-oriented. The task-oriented was the supervisor tells exactly how, where, and when to perform a task and gives you general directions, and then if it was for the resident, it will be the supervisor tells me, what to do. And for communication, there's 2-way communications, and you guys make mutual decisions. And not surprisingly, 1/3 of the residents did not observe the leadership behavior specific to instructions and mutual decision-making. And 1/3 or more of the supervisors reported that they did not display those leadership behaviors or didn't know how to do those. So then I was back to okay, where is it that we can find something tangible that we can start working on it, right? What are the components that we need? And so then I sort of ran through many different loopholes into this, body of literature that I think summarizes or helps as a great tool. So we're asking the residents and we're asking ourselves to have self-awareness, to have self-regulation, to have motivation, empathy, and social skills. And that is basically the 5 components of emotional intelligence. You can read about emotional intelligence, anything from YouTube to how to be the best leader, how to be the best cook, using your emotional intelligence. There's a lot of good literature, a lot of bad literature, a lot of do these 5 things every day, get up at 5 a.m., only eat non-fat, and then you'll be emotionally intelligent. But that's really not it, right? And you can call it, there's, obviously this was started by a group of people, and other people have sort of described different techniques, but on the same realm that basically addresses the same thing. So I think this is really the key to understanding. So IQ and technical skills are important. So you can be very smart, know a lot of medicine, be an excellent surgeon. But if you lack emotional intelligence, then basically you cannot direct an OR and patients are going to die, right? Because you can do all your parts great, but you cannot work in a system efficiently. So let's go through these aspects or these parts of emotional intelligence. So self-awareness. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize and understand your mood. The hallmark is self-confidence, realistic self-assessment, and if you're really good, then you can have self-deprecating sense of humor, right? So there's 4 archetypes of self-awareness, right? There's, if you look at the axis, there's the internal, where you feel you are self-aware, and then there's the external, when people feel you lack or you have self-awareness. The introspectors are the ones that are really good at understanding themselves, but people on the outside world do not understand that, right? The seekers are the one that, unfortunately, they don't know anything about themselves, and people in the outside world either. The pleasers are the ones that people in the outside world, and these are sort of the dangerous people, right? Because people in the outside world feel that they know them, that they have a lot of self-awareness, but truly they lack of it. And what we desire is somebody that is aware, right? That they have self-awareness and the outside world perceive them as, yes, they know who they are and they know what tricks them and they know when they need to take a breath and when they need to leave the room or they need to move to the next step. We all have dark traits, right? So these were done for CEOs. They, Fortune 500, they sent thousands of surveys and they said, what is your dark trait, right? The thing that will get you into trouble. And the point of this is the more you recognize those, the more self-awareness you have. So we all have a mix of those. It's not like you are bold, but not cautious. You can be at different times. You may have different so-called dark traits, but part of self-awareness is really understanding those. It's understanding triggers, right? So if you know that somebody getting late when you are the chief resident and the intern is always late, or the intern is 5 minutes responding where you're expecting 2 minutes, and you're not aware of that and how you respond to that, then that communication with that person is never going to go well, because first of all, you're already biased to that person. And second of all, you are already, against the fact that that person is always 5 minutes late. The other party may not have anything to say about it and may not even realize that, right? So let's talk about self-regulation. So the definition is the ability to control or redirect disruptive impulses and moods. Hopefully all of us go through these 10 times a day. On a bad day, things that trigger you make you sort of take a deep breath. And the hallmark to those is that these people are, and COVID is the perfect example, right? We change every day. You wear masks today, you don't wear masks tomorrow. You do this today, no, we're not doing this tomorrow. People who lack self-regulation will be really hard to deal with this because they'll be like, we talked about this yesterday and I cannot move from that today. And then ambiguity and changes are not good. And that's part of the real world. So as a resident, if you're not able to move through that fast, understanding the background, you are gonna lack self-regulation. So typical things. You are coming out of Saturday 24 hours and at 5:35, or let's say 6:59, 1 minute before you're about to sign out, the nurse says, this patient that you've talked to 100 times overnight is angry and wants to talk to you again. Your first response is basically, I'm done. I have 1 minute, I've already given it all. I don't want to deal with this anymore. But guess what? You have to, right? And so this is where self-regulation comes in, and things that you can do for that are, you focus your mind after the initial shock, which hopefully this is not, a big shock. Don't make assumptions. We all make assumptions of, she's gonna ask me the same thing. We're gonna talk about the same thing that I already told you 100 times. You start a dialogue and you close with confidence, meaning, you are going to work on this. So these are things that, I just said. So just take a minute to say, okay, I'm gonna go into that room. Just don't make assumptions in terms of maybe it's something not related, it's something different. You start asking, again, if it's the first time that you're dealing with that, and then you reassure the person that you're gonna work on this, or somebody coming is gonna work on this. So let's move into motivation. So motivation is a passion to work for reasons that go beyond money or status. So these are the things that people say, why do you do this, right? Why, friends outside of medicine, why do you want to work 80 hours? Why do you want to continue to do this? Why don't you go into residency that, it's not so hard? And it just, hopefully because you really like this, and whatever you do here keeps giving you energy to continue. So the hallmarks are you're optimistic, you have a strong drive to achieve, and you have commitment to the organization. So when we talk about motivation, the easiest way to look at it is that it's energy, right? So there's physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy, and spiritual energy. And I put there things that you can do to replenish those. Again, this is nothing new, but if you're not aware of this gets to you after you are, 2 weeks on, labor and delivery with the weekend on call, and you get to a point where you start feeling that, work is not so much fun, and I'm just sort of like tired of doing this, and maybe this is just not worth it, right? Like, just having the 10th C-section per day, it's just not fun anymore, right? So the idea is that you're able to recognize, where can I draw some energy? Is it that I need to eat? Is it that I need to like go into a room and scream? Is it that I need to sort of take 5 minutes, whoever meditate, whoever needs to look at Instagram, whatever it is that will get you those hour of energy that you need to keep going. Empathy. So this is one of the hardest, and in order for you to have this, you have to sort of master all the other ones, right? Because it's the ability to understand the emotional makeup of other people. So people spend a career doing this, right? So we're trying to teach you this in 4 years. You go into a room and you're trying to understand the emotional makeup of somebody that you just met, right? I don't know about you, but I feel that I need to take a pause and look into my motivation. So this is really expertise in building and retaining cross-cultural talent, or making sure that you can read the room, right? So how do you do that? So you can embrace not knowing. So go into a room, really not having assumptions, really say, I don't know, I want to understand. You want to have radical difference, and that has to do with the fact that you don't want to put people where it's on tracks that you are comfortable with, like, oh, you had a baby that died last pregnancy, so I can understand that this pregnancy you're anxious because of this. And I remember, my last patient that had this, maybe this woman is completely different. And you should really start from, what is it different on you from what I think it's causing the issue. Commitment is really to work with that person, with that patient, with your colleague, with whatever it is, and then basically bring, as Dr. Rice used to say, love the boat, right? Bring everybody in and see how can we get this better. So, and the last one, which is the hardest, is social skill. If you're really good at all of them, you got to an empathy level, then you have social skill. And social skill is basically being able to manage relationships. It's really trying to talk to the charge nurse. It's really trying to talk to your program director at the same time. It's really dealing with conflicts as they come and finding, common grounds. For those, you have 3 major things, which is managing expectations, communication, and persuasion. And when you talk about managing expectations, you can use the bias framework, which is basically you're looking at, how can I understand behaviors? What information can I get at this point from this situation, reading the room? The way I analyze it, and this is always looking at biases, right? Looking at, why am I looking at this way? Am I looking at this way because this is what I'm used to? Or am I looking this way because I want to this is more comfortable to me, and you're missing the point. And then basically looking at the system ahead. For communication, use short words to talk about hard things. Sticky metaphors, which are really hard. You have to be really good at it. If you're not, then you probably better not use metaphors, because those are harder to understand for patients. But if you can find one good metaphor talks a whole lot of volume in front of a patient. And always, say the why and tell a story, right? Why am I interested in working with you, and why am I interested in helping you with this? Or why am I telling you, that we're having this hard conversation? And, everything has a background. Tell the story about why. And then persuasion, so you have to try to get the other party to not only understand why, but to really change the behavior or work towards what it's supposed to be best. So show how your work benefit the team, and it's not just because for you. The group threat test is basically has to do with people believe that you have your best intentions, right? You're not doing this because you want to get out fast, you want to have some personal, gain into it. Be creative with your consistency, meaning be consistent, but don't repeat the same story all over the place, right? Have objective information, address the obstacles, encourage collaboration, and get support. So we've talked super fast about those 5 components that are easy to go in like 20 minutes, very difficult to go through in real life, but if you don't start working on it, you'll never get to that. So what do we do now? Like, is this the best way to address this? Is this the way to get you to be proficient at level 4 of your milestones? Or this is just a bunch of, stuff that people write, but it's really not able to be operationalized in a way. So I think there it is. So there's GME, ACGME in 18 sort of looked at how other programs did to train presidents also in leadership. And you can see that there were, I think there were like 40 programs or 45 programs total. And they divided how they teach it in what content, length, method, training, and level. And you can see that most of them focus on teamwork and models of leadership and quality improvement. So there's other programs, and we are also doing this, but we are yet to figure out how to best get to this. And then I run into this, which is, at Berkeley, in the business school, they're going to have a full semester class in the art of having tough conversations. So how many hours is that with a smaller group of people? Just to teach one aspect. So imagine that we get, one class of residents and we spend one semester just trying to teach tough conversations. Yet we are expecting that the intern goes into triage, the first week and have a tough conversation with someone that wants to leave or doesn't want to have, an NSD or doesn't want to have something. So just to sort of wrap it up, I think that this framework was helpful to me in terms of understanding how to develop these skills. You need about 70% on the job experience, and you get probably more than that. You need 10% of a structured programs, which is technically like your Thursday morning and a little bit more. And you need really 20% of interactions with others into these type of things so that you can, with your eyes wide open, understand all this stuff that we've talked today. And that is all I have. I am happy to take any questions. I think the goal for this is not, as I said, to give you a lecture about self-regulation and all of this. Is just to hopefully motivate you to start looking into those aspects of things as they relate to making your day easier and hopefully being more effective in what you do. So with that, I'll take any questions. And I made it in really good time.
Yes, thank you so much, Igor. I think one of the things that people don't always think about, but is absolutely true, is that when you're a physician, you are by definition a leader. And so this whole idea of leadership skills, for graduating residents, for faculty, for everybody, and I think it's super important. And I think you pointed out that we don't spend enough time trying to understand it, teach it, and help people on that part of their path. Because no matter where you are in the medical setting, you are leading, particularly you're the senior person in the operating room, you're the person in clinic and everybody's there to assist you, to see the patients, you're running labor and delivery. In every particular case, you're the leader. So I just appreciated your comments and those of us who have had, leadership training, it's never enough. It's a lifelong quest. Yeah. And I think you bring up some really good points. So I'd love to hear other people's ideas on what you put out there. I mean, you put yourself out there and I appreciate that.
Great, thank you.
I also think it's important for me to flip it a bit, and I never thought of it this way. I have a hard time writing evaluations or comments that address professionalism or address communication. So flipping the framework, this also helps, like when you're writing a letter or comments for students, or we write for residents, how we can frame those comments to address those issues that can maybe help us see where someone falls, because the milestones are pretty broad, and making comments on reflection or those leadership tenets, I think is really, really helpful in providing feedback as well.
I think that the field is changing. In the past, if you were a very good surgeon, if you were very good at whatever you did, you were a very good researcher, you were, you went through that path and you were excelling, then you were considered a leader and you were put into leading people. And I think that has been greatly shown that that doesn't work, right? You can be an excellent researcher, you can be an excellent surgeon, you can be whatever it is that your passion is, but don't really know how to manage people or manage situations, right? And in the past, obviously, it was accepted that people would get mad, that people would say, it's not working, and throwing instruments or doing that. I think we've moved a long way to you can be very good at this, but you really lack any skills to talk to other people or motivate other people or really do whatever it's needed for this patient not to get the wrong medication, right? Because if I start yelling at the pharmacist because it's so stupid what they're asking me, right? Then that just really doesn't work. And thankfully, I think we see less and less of that, but this is what this is, right? Like that being a doctor doesn't make you necessarily a skilled person to deal with that if you don't really learn, right? And so that's what it is. And I think business schools and everybody else is realizing that, and we are just busy enough doing our day-to-day and sort of being leaders without necessarily having, all the tools and learning on the go. So, all right. Right.
It's a lot of reasons. I have about 4 or 5 professional development topics within your 20 minutes worth of talk, so it's really hard to do. What I see is that there are a lot of different reasons why physicians and my role in residents and fellows can be less effective than they can ultimately be. And that comes because of a wide range of things. There's a lot of things, but the most common reason that people are less effective than they can be or want to be is communication. Probably by a lot. And that is different than saying people are bad at communication or aren't good at making contact. It's very different. It's just that the nature of what we do now is so much more complex. Everything, you can't walk into a hospital as a physician and not be a part of at least more than one team in some way. And so I think it's just a great topic to discuss because of that very fact. If you are not working on how you communicate from day 1 of residency to the day you retire, you are going to be less effective than you can be in the way medicine is done now. There can be other things too, but that is by far and away the most common thing that's seen any level in medicine, intern, resident, fellow, faculty, leadership of institutions.
Okay. Great. Thank you.